The Winx Club reboot doesn't need to exist. If you grew up in the 2000s, then odds are you've seen an episode or two of Winx Club, with the series being one of the best-known examples of the magical girl trope alongside Sailor Moon. First airing in Italy in 2004, the show followed the adventures of a group of students who attend the Alfea College for Fairies and use their powers to fight dastardly villains and save the world. Winx Club was a surprise success upon its release, prompting the creation of dozens of tie-in video games, comic books, and toys, making it one of the most recognizable and profitable brands of the 2000s. In the 20 years since, several movies, spin-off series, and even a live-action adaptation have been released, but these recent projects haven't been very well received by the fandom, leaving the future of the franchise up in the air. In a last-ditch attempt at relevancy, Winx Club creator Eugenio Straffi recently announced a computer-animated reboot that is scheduled to air in 2025, but I've got to be honest, based on what I've seen so far, I don't have very high hopes. Now, I'll be the first to say that I'm not the show's intended audience, but as someone who grew up watching the original series, I still have thoughts on it, and obviously, I'm going to be sharing them. Like most Americans who grew up in the 2000s, I was introduced to Winx Club when it began airing on 4Kids TV, with the channel dubbing the first 3 seasons of the show. In more recent years, these dubs have been denounced by the Winx fandom, as character names, dialogue, and even entire plot lines were changed, but since it's the version I grew up watching, I have a fondness for it. It's also where most of my knowledge of Winx Club comes from, as I had outgrown the show by the time it was released on Nickelodeon with a more faithful dub and a 4th season, which, yes, means I don't consider Roxy a member of Winx, since she wasn't around during my original viewing of the show.
I hate to say it, I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is. I mean, he could be walking down the street, I wouldn't know a thing. Sorry to this man.
The 4th season of Winx Club ended in 2009, but the show was later revived in 2012 by Nickelodeon, with a pretty notable decline in quality visually and thematically. There were 3 more seasons, plus 2 animated spin-offs, World of Winx and Pop Pixie, but the franchise as a whole seemed to be going off the rails, with the storylines being dumbed down for younger and younger audiences, and the animation looking less polished, to the point that Season 8 is practically unwatchable. In the original series, the girls' relationships were just as important as their magical powers, but as the years went by, those interactions were pushed aside in favor of action and humor, erasing the heart of the story and making it less relatable. This was reflective of a shift in media as a whole, with shows made for adolescents becoming less and less common as we moved into the 2010s and 2020s, with kids having to jump from Bluey straight to Riverdale the second they entered their tweens. When the Winx Club was first airing in the 2000s, shows like Zoe 101, Kim Possible, Lizzie McGuire, Braceface, That's So Raven, Ned's Declassified, All Grown Up, and Hannah Montana were created specifically for the 8 to 12 age bracket, introducing kids to situations that they'd soon be experiencing like puberty, dating, friendships, and peer pressure. While the original Winx series touched on these issues, the Winx revival didn't, which I think is part of the reason that those seasons failed to make a lasting impact. There was an attempt to update the series for contemporary audiences in 2021's Fate the Winx Saga, a live-action series that took the show in an edgy teen drama direction, similar to Pretty Little Liars, Teen Wolf, The Vampire Diaries, and Gossip Girl. But the adaptation was widely criticized by fans of the original series, and after only 2 seasons, it was canceled by Netflix. With so many failures in such a short time, I don't blame Eugenio Straffi for wanting to start fresh. But the direction of the reboot doesn't seem to be the most thought out, with the Winx Club's modern updates being limited to pop culture references and the characters' appearances.
I want an apology on social media.
But nobody follows me on social.
Now, I know that computer animation has eclipsed traditional animation in popularity over the last decade, so I'm not necessarily surprised to see that the reboot is going in that direction. However, I am disappointed by how utterly uninspired it looks. Back when Winx Club was first airing, it was by no means the only cartoon aimed at young girls, but it was able to stand on its own by not only having a unique storyline, but also a unique art style. Having a distinctive look was something that many cartoons from that time period prioritized, with shows like Totally Spies, Powerpuff Girls, Codename Kids Next Door, Strawberry Shortcake, and As Told by Ginger being recognizable at a quick glance. Besides these different art styles helping inspire children's creativity, they were also reflective of a show's tone, allowing viewers to make inferences about the characters and story without having to spell it out directly. Compare that to the state of animation today, which has seen basically every studio incorporate the gigantic eyes and heart-shaped faces popularized by Disney and Pixar. This has resulted in incredibly homogeneous visuals, with shows like Mermaid Magic, Barbie It Takes Two, Monster High, Miraculous Ladybug, and Sophia the First being near indistinguishable from one another. I personally would have found this boring as a kid, so instead of going in such a generic direction, it would have been interesting to see the Winx Club reboot opt for something a bit more stylized. At least so the characters didn't look like Disney princess knockoffs. And come on, doesn't Headmistress Faragonda look exactly like the creepy grandma in that one mobile game? When Eugenio Straffi was developing Winx Club, he was determined to make the girls as relatable as possible, which meant giving them a wardrobe real 2000s teen girls would have worn. And as a kid, that was actually one of the things that made me fall in love with the show in the first place. Besides dressing like the cool older girls that I saw at the mall, the Winx also changed their outfits for different occasions, wearing dresses on dates or sportswear on hikes, all of which helped ground the otherwise fantastical show in reality. Most cartoons kept their characters in the same outfit to save time and costs, so this extra detail was definitely appreciated, and Winx Club is one of the things that I credit for my early interest in fashion. In Nickelodeon's revival series, the girls still had the occasional outfit change, but instead of unique outfits that were reflective of their individual personalities, they just wore recolors of the same look. Said looks were incredibly ruffly and sparkly, looking more like the outfits a mom would dress her preschooler in than what a teenager would actually wear. Over the course of the Winx Club, the girls unlocked different fairy transformations, with each being more elaborate than the last. Their basic fairy form, or their Charmix transformation, is probably their most recognizable, with each of the characters wearing simple, color-coded outfits that would make the perfect group Halloween costume. In subsequent media, other transformations were introduced, which go from glamorous to outright tacky. Some images of Bloom, Stella, and Flora's fairy transformations for the reboot were leaked, going in a simplistic direction similar to their original Charmix transformations, just slightly updated, with Bloom looking like a literal Lululemon advertisement. However, the concept seems to have been scrapped, with the teaser trailer showing the girls in a more ornate look that is sort of reminiscent of their Mythics transformations, which I'll be honest, I don't love. Besides being way too flashy for their first fairy form, the outfits are incredibly dated, like something Ariana Grande would have worn during her Sweetener tour 5 years ago, which is a shame because a few hours on Pinterest and TikTok should have been able to show them what's actually trending nowadays. I feel the same way about their civilian attire as well, which has so many accessories and layers that they look like a victim of Disney sitcom styling. Now I know they needed to give them recognizable and interesting outfits for the sake of merchandise, but why couldn't they also look good? Did Bloom really have to wear plaid leggings and denim leg warmers? Does Aisha have to be relegated to cutouts and athletic wear? And why does Stella look like she shops at Temu? Out of all the girls, Tekna's look is the only one I'm happy with, since it's a return to the futuristic Y2K aesthetic that she sported in the original series. In fact, it might even be more appropriate this time around if the rumors about her being an android in the reboot are actually true. We also get a glimpse of the Trix witches, and they look pretty good in their rebooted form, but again, I think that's because it's so similar to their original outfits. Although I will say, I don't love the giant initials. Yes, they wore them the first time around, but I didn't like it then either. In general, I don't think characters should be walking around with giant letters on their shirts unless they're a superhero. A sentiment the reboot clearly doesn't share, since the Trix, Bloom, and Musa are all wearing various odes to their names. Based on the teaser trailer, the reboot seems to be following in the footsteps of the original series pretty closely. Just like the first and second episodes, we see Bloom riding a bike to a local park where she meets Stella, who's being attacked by an ogre, Nut. Afterwards, Bloom is invited to Alfea, where she not only learns how to harness her powers, but also her mysterious past. I don't actually mind Bloom's introduction being derivative of the original series, but if everything else is a direct recreation as well, then I don't see why they wasted their time with a reboot in the first place. Considering Winx Club's potential, I understand why they keep coming back to it over and over again, but until they approach the material in a way that is actually interesting, all they're going to do is further tarnish its legacy. The series is 20 years old at this point. Maybe it's time to put it to rest. What are your thoughts on the Winx Club reboot? Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!